open up my phone, and there is a text from my daughter that my now 9-year-old grandson, who is homeschooled, has been homeschooled his whole life, just started the 4th grade this week at home.
Wow.
And you know how the kids, they love to do these unpacking videos where we get this thing and we're going to unpack it. And so this was the unpacking of all the books that arrived for the 4th grade. So like, just imagine the delight. Someone who loves to read, someone who loves to learn, these books. And what's the book in the very top? Because she just took a picture and she didn't realize the universe was channeling through her. But it was a book called Fantastic Failures.
No kidding.
Yeah. Everybody, this is my dear friend Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the Elder Council. And today I want to talk about our relationship to failure. And I knew I wanted to talk about that yesterday. When I woke up this morning to that image, I went, well, I guess the universe agrees. This is what we're talking about.
The universe has got your back.
When I say your relationship to failure, would you say you have a relationship to failure? Is it something you think about?
I do.
Tell me about it.
And what's interesting about that, Mark, is that that has changed dramatically since I was a kid and throughout my lifetime.
Tell me about that. Give me an example of when you were a kid.
Well, we lived on a farm. We had a baseball field. We played softball pretty much every day in the summer. And I also was a airplane addict. And so I built and flew model airplanes as a kid, which later translated into me becoming a pilot. But as a kid, when I would crash my plane in learning, or I would strike out, or I would, make an error, those kind of things, I felt like a piece of warmed over dog doo-doo and was incredibly judgmental of myself. Interestingly enough, that when I did well, I did not have the same perspective. It was like if I failed, I was a failure. If I did well, it was sort of luck. I wouldn't allow myself to own that. And that's when we fail at something, which we will. And the shift in that, and it's taken a while. It's taken a while to go, yeah, I failed at that, and that's not who I am. And so
hold just a second. I failed at that, and that's not who I am. So you disassociated from the failure. You didn't say that the failure is like someone told me one time, says, Mark, you're not the company.
Right.
You're not the company. Separate. I meant to say disassociate. I said disassociate. I meant separate. So you were able to separate yourself from the failure, but early on you didn't.
Early on, I didn't. It was like,
got it.
And a lot of us get that. A lot of us get the message of you do something wrong and you get told you're a bad boy or a bad girl, instead of what you just did was not cool and I love you. We most of us do not get that message.
So, okay, I'm gonna keep pinging. So what you just did was not cool. I would think if I had just struck out, which you could say was a failure, I misjudged whatever I failed, and you came out and the coach said, what you just did was not cool, that's different. I think if you go and you beat up on someone and you get pulled by the scruff of your neck, hey, that's not cool. That's not it. Well, I guess it's a failure of judgment. But
You
I've
mean it if you're like a bully? Is that what we're talking
yeah,
about?
when you said that someone would say, "Hey, that's not cool," in relationship to failure,
Mhm.
I think that when I if I would say that's not cool, it's like, "Hey, you're being an asshole right now." But just because you failed doesn't mean you're an asshole. So did
Exactly,
I
that
confuse things?
no, 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 you're on the right track. Just because we fail doesn't mean we are a failure
Right,
as a
right,
human being.
right.
In the same way, if a kid, what's interesting, and you did a little sidestep there around the beating up of somebody. What's super interesting to me about that is that those people who do that, who beat up on other people, do it primarily because they feel like they're a failure
Hmm,
and
there
they
you
have
go.
to take that out on somebody else. Because there's really, other than protecting somebody you love, which for me, that's huge. I would, if somebody messed with Kimberly, I would die protecting her. If someone messed with
Yeah,
you, we would probably die protecting each other if we
yeah,
needed to.
yeah.
That's a different
That's yeah,
process
yeah.
than taking what you feel inside about yourself and putting it onto somebody else. Um, and you asked, I mean, your question was, what was the difference between when I was a little kid and now? Um, the big shift is I still make mistakes. I still screw up. I still do the wrong thing with my horse sometimes. I still, say or do something in my relationship that is it's just not fucking cool.
Hey,
And it's
another aside, doctor. Because we live in a technological age, it's at that moment when you've just can I take that back? And you can't take it back. Like I didn't need to say that. There was no need. That was right.
right. It's like you
I
sent the text message and you can't
Well, I
you
want
can't.
control there, and I said this to someone 20 years ago. Um, there's no control Z in life. Control Z is a undo. And we've all integrated
Mhm,
that into their life. So I'm working along, mistake, control Z, back up, back up, back up, back up. How far can I back up to where, okay, I'm good, and keep going? There's no
mhm.
control Z in life. I said that to someone who's, oh, you made a mistake. Yeah, no control Z in life, dude. This is, you got to just keep going, keep going. Sorry, I just as soon as you said, I was like,
No.
you to me that's a fail. I've been thinking about choice a lot and how important it is to teach choice young. Like everything's a choice. Hey, you didn't take out the trash. How is that a choice challenge? You didn't choose to remember. You didn't choose to make your chores important enough to do them before you did the thing you wanted. So things about choice.
Mhm.
Um, and is that a failure? Sure, could be. I'm thinking about failure in. I've done a little bit of research, not a lot, but a little bit, because I've been an entrepreneur, might since I was, a teenager. Um, I have a different kind of relationship to failure because you kind of are inventing a thing that didn't exist. So whatever that thing is, you're making a thing that didn't exist. And that comes from being an artist as well. So I'm live in the world right in between art and commerce. I live right
Mhm.
in the middle of that. I'm not either one or the other. I am both. And so it's making something. And if it didn't come out the way you thought, it's still novel and interesting, inventive, and do better next time. And as opposed to, oh, fuck. I mean, I guess if the cake falls, the cake falls. Hey, do I have enough time to make another one? I've
Hmm.
never had that judgment, yet I know that exists, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. And how stigmatizing failure is on us, how whether it's the story we tell ourselves, like, I don't want to tell people I failed. Like, you know, a big flaming crash out, you had to close the company, right? That's a big fail, right? Versus or having someone say, God, you're just a failure. Fuck, I don't want to hang out with you. You're a failure. You're terrible at relationship. You're terrible at your job. You're terrible. So I'm thinking along, and I think failure is interwoven into a lot of stuff. At improv on Tuesday nights, Kimberly will say, "We will fail tonight," and she didn't say you. We will fail tonight, and we celebrate failure, and we actually have a sign. So when because it is because you have these little there's when you play games have rules. So we play a lot of improv warm-up games, and there's a rule: you do this thing when you go left, and you do this thing when you go right. And the whole thing about improv is to break the game, because that's when it's funny. However, you have to let people feel okay to fail, because they're new or they don't know the rules, or they're so
Mm.
what happens is, we're every time we go left, we're going to say whoosh, right? And until someone goes bang, and then that's going to switch it and it's going to go right. And when you go around a couple times, people fuck up. They just, oh, that's right, I do and they get like that, they get flustered. But we have already set the tone to say, we know we're going to fail. So when we do, the whole and people will notice it, and then channel that energy instead of, oh, you fucked up. Oh God. And then we all laugh.
Hmm.
And back to me always using improv lessons for life, because improv is life. What do we do? What could we do? Here we go. What could we do when you make that, you say to your Kimberly, you say something like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have said that. Didn't need to say that. Can you just have some little, oh, I just fucked up? She would, what would happen? I'm just curious.
Well, actually, what actually does happen, and it happened maybe about 20 minutes ago. It was like, oh fuck, what came out of my mouth was not what was I was trying to let come out of my heart.
Mm,
And it was like, okay, um, eh, you okay if I build on what you just spoke
please.
about?
That's what I love about our show. You had a yes and what I said, sir?
You bet I am. As you're talking, there are three things that come to mind. One is vulnerability, the concept of being vulnerable. There's also the concept of risk and willingness to take risk. And then I want to talk, so I want to sort of set those in there to play with a little bit. And as many people know, I have, if I count them up, I probably have 13 years of schooling post high school. So somewhere in that vicinity. And I'm a lifelong learner. Like in 3 weeks, I'm going to go do a 10-day horsemanship and Aikido class. Actually, I'm in a master class right now learning how to do more business stuff. I just did a class on to get my supervisory license, which because there was a law change in Colorado, those kind of things. many people, and one of the things I've studied, because some of my earlier degrees have been in education and especially special ed. And many people have come up with learning theories, like how do we learn? And there are some fairly sophisticated learning theories out there. I'll give whomever put those together huge amount of credit. And all of them, all of them come down to the core concept of trial and error.
Hmm.
How do we learn? Trial and error. How does a dog learn? Trial and error. How does a horse learn? Trial and error. How do we learn both tasks around doing particular things, like, for instance, a sport or a martial art or horsemanship or drawing? Trial and error. How do we, like when I was out in Santa Barbara with you and Kimberly and the Red Circle, it was over and over and over, trial and error.
Mhm.
And the issue with that is, do we judge ourselves on the error?
Hmm.
Or, because as soon as we judge ourselves, if I make a mistake and I go, oh fuck, man, oh God, I'm a piece of shit. And I hear people go, they make a mistake and they go, oh well, fuck me. And it's like, really?
Wow.
And it's like, are we going, because when we do that, what we do is we do not allow ourselves to learn. And what we're doing is stopping a innate designed process of learning, because we have to fail to learn. We have to fail to learn.
As you say that, and the reason I'm talking about, I thought we could talk about this today, was I frequently said I don't have a rear view mirror. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
experience regret or worry, because I worry is about the future, regrets about the past. That doesn't mean I don't. What I do is, oh, hmm, that didn't go the way I wanted,
That didn't
or
go so well.
right, that didn't go so well. And I, maybe because I've been, doing martial arts for 20 years, that is seeped into my brain, which is, that's an opportunity to train. So
Yes.
oh, yeah, okay. There's no judgment around that at all. And I think the meditation also is a part of that, where I don't judge. It's like I observe with interest. Oh, huh. Okay. So, and I also, again, another martial thing was, I think someone in a class had fucked up and hit somebody. We don't hit people. You
Right,
get
right, right.
right, you just right up. And he goes, I'm sorry. And you hear Master Wheaton across the room, we're not sorry. We change our behavior. Saying I'm sorry. And now in personal relationships, you want to say I'm sorry when you hurt someone. That's important. However, when you use sorry as an excuse, oh, I'm sorry, let me off
Mm-hmm.
the hook. That no, you leave yourself on the hook and say, I got to try to do better. And
Right. I need to change my behavior, which is
yeah,
based on a failure
right, right.
or error.
Yeah, yes, exactly. An error, judgment, right? So it's that, it's like the word failure has built in negativity by by definition, that error doesn't seem to have. like failure is a trigger, like a loaded powder keg word, where error is, oh, error. Rub it out. Get the big eraser in life. Just erase that. Did we
So
come
let
up on
me,
something there?
yeah, what you're talking about is mind blowing. A huge part of what I think that, well, let me say it differently. A huge part that happens inside me when you're talking is our words matter.
Yeah.
Our words matter. So let me back up a little bit. If now, just, I think there are times to use the phrase, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Like I'm in a grocery store and I have the cart and I'm backing up and I'm looking at something and I happen to bump into somebody. And that's, I think, a very appropriate time to go, hey, sorry. And I'll say it that way, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to run into you.
Yeah, well,
Go.
what if you said, excuse me?
Sometimes I do that.
Because
And
sorry is also one of those. Like, are you sorry? Like, I don't want to be a dick at the grocery store. So that's happened. Someone, nudges, oh, I'm sorry I didn't see you. Well, are you really sorry? I mean, you weren't paying attention. I mean, I don't want to be that old crotchety dude. Excuse me, I wasn't paying
you
attention.
change from elder to crotchety old man. Is that what you're talking about?
um, but it does cross my mind. So, I mean, to your point, it's don't say you're sorry. Excuse me. Now to yourself, hey, pay attention, fucker. There's other people around you. Look, just be a little more aware.
Well, and as you're talking, most of the time, what I say if I do happen to run into somebody, I say, "Are you okay?"
Oh,
And
wow. Level up
that's,
that.
yeah,
That's even better.
yeah, and oftentimes it'll be, "I'm sorry, you okay?" And so it, and most of the times, what I hear back, in fact, I don't even remember a time where I didn't. Is some like, "No worries, it's all good," those kind of things.
Right.
But I want to get into this piece, and actually, I'm really glad you sort of called this out. I'm sorry is a statement talking about yourself.
Right.
Like, I am sorry. It's like, are you, and I'm not talking about an apology. What, if I use the word I am sorry, that's like saying, I am tall. I am, um, it's a it's a description of
It's a
yourself.
piece of data.
I'm tall. I have a beard. I'm a man. What we're doing is defining ourselves as a sorry human being. So I do want to shift a piece around here a little bit. There's and I like what you said, like, excuse me, or again, many times, especially, I mean, if it's a little brush, it's like there's different levels. But I'll often say, "Are you okay?" And
Which made it all about them and not about you.
right, which is, I think, appropriate because I'm the one that ran into them. But there's a difference in a relationship if we have made a major failure. And again, this is very nuanced and there's different levels of this. Many times what I'll say is, I feel sorrow in my heart, or my heart hurts. Will you forgive me? Because that's a description of what's happening inside me. And it's a request for forgiveness. Now, again, if I'm 5 minutes late coming home, that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
Mhm. then what I'm talking about is if I have a major failure. But I'm not saying I'm a bad human being because I just did that. What I'm saying is this is my experience right now. And when we have the other piece I want to bring in here is that many times we experience failure in a grieving process when we have had a major loss
Mm.
of some sort. And I'll give you a perfect example. Like about it's 2.5 or 3 weeks ago, Kimberly and I came back from camping, and my horse, one of my horses, was lame. He was really tender, and I've gone through all kinds of stuff this last 2.5 or 3 weeks. And our house sitter was here, and for some reason she didn't notice what was going on. I actually spoke to her, and she goes, "Well, I sort of thought he was stiff, but I saw him, and it was like within 10 minutes I called the vet." And two things happened. One is, and he's had a lot of foot hoof issues. One is I immediately went to a catastrophic place of, am I going to lose him because of the kind of, and so a lot of what was going on inside of me was feeling like a failure to care for him the way that I want to care for him. You know, did I do something wrong? Did I let him down? Did I all of those things? And that shifted into, and it took some time, but it shifted into, okay, this is what has happened. What am I going to do about it? But I did, but my grief was about the possibility of losing him and the possibility of losing him because I failed. And
So you, uh, by the way, there's a 5S story in that.
yes,
The
I'm
setting, right? We know the setting. It's in the morning. You've just come back from a trip. The snap is you notice something wrong very quickly. The struggle is both internal in you and
an
external with
external.
Moon, right? There's a struggle. And then my question is the shift. So something happened where you shifted your thinking away from you as a failure to this. And now pick up the story there.
Well, that thank you. This is really interesting because what happened inside was if I lose Moon, I'll never be the same. That's what was going on inside me.
Hmm.
And it was interesting. After a couple days, I told Kimberly, uh, if I lose Moon, I'll be devastated and I'll still be okay.
Hmm.
And which was an interesting thing because later she gave me the feedback of, of that changed what happened inside her around working with Moon. But it was that was the shift. It's like I I will grieve Moon. I will if I lose him, and I'm still going to be okay, which was
So the end of the
a
story is
very
the
bad thing.
success. What was the learning there, right? At the
Well,
end
the
of the
learning
story.
is that I'm not a failure.
Right. There you go. And by
And
the way, for our listener who's paying attention, how is Moon now?
Moon is dramatically better.
Right. Because
He's
you were dad. You did what you needed to do.
I did, and Kimberly did,
Yeah.
and we did together
Team effort.
what we needed to do for him and what we needed to do for other horses. And which all of that is a success because I couldn't have done it without Kimberly. And that's part of the success. And part of the success is being able to see the situation for what it was, which is the Moon got an infection in his foot. That's what happened. Actually got an infection in both of his front feet.
Not that
One was
you,
wayward.
not that you had a dereliction of duty and therefore failed, and that's what happened.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So when
And
we think about our relationship to failure, then it kind of gets back to judgment, and maybe it's like, this was
big
not a
time.
failure on my part. Like when shit goes wrong, we could easily, oh, I fucked up. What did I do this time? Right? There could be, I know people like that. What, I fucked up. It must have been me because I'm the fuck up in the family.
Right.
Right. And
Totally.
that feels like such a debilitating way to live life.
Talk about that more, my friend. What you just
Well,
said is really big.
if you constantly feel like a failure, but that just can't feel good. The feeling of that, the emotion of feeling like a failure. I want to do if anybody is that kind of person, please direct message me, because I want to talk to you, because you're not.
Correct.
And that would be very hard to live with. And it's kind of like, we talk about yes and, right? I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
take the situation, I'm going to add to it. When you have that kind of relationship with failure, you're nobody. No. There's no way that Moon just got an infection, for however the fuck a horse gets an infection. There's no, it was me. No, but it was me. No, I'm even in the face of scientific data. There's no way it could have been you, because I'm a fuck up and I fail, and
Right.
everything I touch, I can't keep relationships, I can't keep jobs, I don't keep control. I'm a terrible dad. I'm in a no spiral now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm in a no spiral, if that's even a thing.
It's a
And
thing.
yeah, it sounds like it probably is a thing. And it feels like someone who is trapped in that, or has maybe not trapped in it. As they get older, they recognize it, but they have a predisposition to get into a no spiral pretty quickly. That shit happened when they were kids.
Mm-hmm. Say more what you mean by that.
Well,
You're onto something.
so there is a stigma around failure. I don't want to let people know I failed. They may not hire me, they may not give me money, they may not love me, they may not, I'm terrible. I mean, there if you allow it, there is a stigma around failure. And so if you had a father or a mother, so it's you, even worse, you idiot, you got a D on your test, or you idiot, you didn't do this,
Mm-hmm.
you idiot, right? So there's, or you come back from striking out in the ball game, and says, "Hey, you suck, but you're a
Right.
terrible ball player." Right? I think if you hear that kind of stuff enough on, hey, Mickey Mantle batted 333 and he was one of the best, ball players,
Ever.
right? And you failed 2/3 of the time, right?
Right.
So there's something, and you said it earlier, which I love, which was trial and error. At the base of all this stuff is trial and error. And as parents,
That's how we learn
right?
everything.
And as parents, back to with my daughter in the opening story here, with opening the box, and there's this book about fantastic failure, is learning how. I'm so glad he's got that book at 9 years old, learning that failure is just
Mhm.
part of the, it's, don't call it fair, it's a trial and error. Trial and
Mhm.
error. Am I going to focus on the error side of life, or am I going to focus on the try all side of life?
Right.
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 There's both of those. What are you going to do? Well, just try again. You'll get it. Try it again. Try it again. And when we talked about, several shows ago, we talked about dendrites,
Yep.
and you
Dendrites.
said, the example was the dad, um, and teaching the kid to ride the bike, and they fail, and then they get frustrated, right, because they're not doing it right.
Mhm.
But
They
that's
judge
it.
themselves.
And there's an opportunity to train as a parent right then. Hey, come on, teach resiliency, teach
Mhm.
perseverance, teach those kinds of things at that time. Yet of course they get frustrated. I want to ride a bike, right? But hey, it's okay, you'll get it. And they go to sleep, the dendrites go to work, they get up the next day, and they go off on the bike,
Right.
right? Trial and error, right? So I think that person who's stuck in that no loop, or a failure loop, or a I can't succeed loop, that shit probably started really young. I'm guessing you're the one, you're the doctor in on this call. How am
You're
I
correct.
right?
You're 1000% correct. So let me talk about that a little bit. In learning theory, trial and error is the main way we learn. What enhances our learning is when we allow ourselves to see our errors or our failures as pieces of information. Let me repeat that. When we allow ourselves to perceive and see our errors slash failures as pieces of information for us.
And by removing judgment,
By removing judgment.
right? It's just, yep, that's the observe with interest. Oh, that
Mhm.
happened, right? In meditation, that I'm taught, you you note something. You just note it. Was that an emotion you sensed, or were you just noting a piece of data? To your
Right.
point.
Pieces of information.
Right. It's just a piece of information noted. Ah, noted.
So, yes, exactly. So when the Wright brothers, because I started off talking about airplanes, and one of my passions has been airplanes. And I grew up in Ohio. The Wright brothers were in Ohio. They were my heroes.
I bet.
When they first flew, their first flight was, and I'm forgetting, it was either 4 or 7 seconds long. That was a huge success. They had tried repeatedly to fly and had, quote, failed at it. One of the things that helped them fly was, at the time, they were ailerons on an airplane had not yet been invented. So what they did was have their wings so it would flex. So they wouldn't go off like this. They'd be able to balance and movement, which is what birds do. Um, the um, and then it was later that they were able to figure out what ailerons were. There was, and here's what's interesting about this. And I'm actually forgetting the other person's name. I'll remember it in a minute. Um, they basically worked out of a bicycle shop and in Dayton, Ohio, and every what they did, their process was based on their passion and based on trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. And every time they failed, they used that as a piece of information. There's another person, and who,
Fuel, not failure.
yeah, fuel, not failure, who was at the time given a grant of $50,000, and I can't for the life of me remember his name. I will probably as soon as we hang up on the call. He was given $50,000 through a university to try to figure out how to fly. He was motivated by the money. As
So
soon as
this is in the Simon Sinek talk.
Oh, that's right. And I'd known about this for a long time, but as soon as the Wright brothers flew, he gave up because he wasn't into trial and error. He was into whatever he was into. And he was not willing to see his failures as information. What was interesting is he was close to like leapfrogging the Wright brothers in some of his development because he had more resources, but he chose just to quit. And so there's a whole piece in here that is just like, when you fail, because you will, we will guarantee that you will. We will guarantee that Mark and I will both fail numerous
Maybe
times
even today.
Probably numerous times. And in that process, are we going to take that as pieces of information, or are we going to give up? And that's my encouragement to people. My encouragement to people is like, when you fail in your relationship, when you fail at your job, when you fail at getting a promotion, when you fail at if you're in the dojo, when you fail there, when you fail, and in some project, it's like, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it?
I think that it is at those times when if we are resourceful, we will dig into our bag of mantras or things that people have told us when we failed in the past that stick with us. So in my case, I feel as like, oh, that's right. Master Rick said this is an opportunity to train, right? So I've got a toolkit of my therapist. We just I says, I need a tip. When this happens, can I have a little tip, please, that I can keep in my back pocket? And then when that happens, I can pull that thing out and go, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, okay, there we go. Boom. Right. There we go. That's what I need. We are that for people. Do you know that, dude? You and I,
hopefully,
through, yes. Yeah, we are. No, we are through what we say and our years of having people whisper in our ear, say it's going to be okay, is what I'm hoping is someone hears this young enough in life. They're like, oh, right. I saw that in myself. It's going to be okay. And think of the various things we've said in this show. Two things as I was studying the topic, getting ready for the show. There's actually a bunch of PhD level papers on stigma and failure and our relationship to it and all that. Didn't know. Mine has always been through the entrepreneurial, tech companies, fail fast. I mean, all that stuff around failure. And then there's all the people who say, well, that's bullshit because you failed. And there's so much rhetoric around it. But what I learned in the scientific paper, which I appreciated, was that we, specifically in America, as it turned out, we have a very high failure tolerance culturally, which I was like,
that's interesting.
I was interested, which is why our tech company is rated best in the world, because we have a very high failure tolerance. Thought, Okay. But the second thing was we believe, as culturally, we believe in second chances. Or you failed. Okay. Pick yourself up, dust it, rub some dirt on it. Let's go. That's how
Mhm.
we are culturally. So I think, and that gave me great peace,
Yeah.
right? Great peace to know that the culture, that the air we breathe and what the world we live in is tolerant of failure by and large, and sees people as, hey, get a second chance. How many stories? I mean, there's one in the news this week about an entrepreneur who millions of dollars invested, and he did the WeWork guy. He did crashed and burned. He just got $440 million. Don't fact check me on the number, but he just got something like that for a new venture because we believe in second chances.
Mhm. That's amazing. So my question then is, are you, and I'm talking to our audience, are you willing to give yourself and to give those you love a second chance, a third chance, a 22nd chance? What are you willing to do? And are you willing to do that with kindness?
There you go. Find a way to do that today.
Yeah,
Dewey
exactly.
Freeman, I love you, man.
I love you too, man.
These conversations get us into some places we had no idea to begin.
Well, and I want to say to you, and I want to say to the audience, every time I do this with you, I learn something
Hmm.
virtually every time. And I walk away from these going, wow, that was, yeah, I'm gonna think about that one.
Mm, mm,
And so
mm.
uh, my hope is that that's what our audience does too.
Yeah.
And just because I'm an elder and we're elders, it doesn't mean we can't keep learning. And I mean, one of the reasons, there are many, many reasons I totally look forward to this every time we do it, every week. One of the reasons is because I learn something every time.
Drop the mic. Amen. See you next
Amen.
time, buddy.
See you next time.